Hi, how's it going? This is resident of Collingwood for YouTube, resident underslash of underslash Collingwood for BitShoot, and I'm here to do a Dark Shadows video entitled On This Day, because on this day, on June 27th in 1966, guess what, folks? Dark Shadows debuted. Dark Shadows first aired. And who would have known for that Dark Shadows would have went on to become this cult phenomenon that still is talked about today amongst its fans. Who would have known that this little show that you know it caught lightning literally inside a bottle. And that's the one thing. Dark Shadows was so, well, still is to me, magical. And I own the Coffin box set, and I will recommend owning the Coffin box set to anybody. If you want to check out Dark Shadows, then go buy the Coffin box set. I mean, there's places you can go watch it. Amazon Prime, Tubi is whatever it's called. But to me, you could also check out Dark Shadows on Hulu. But for me, nothing beats the Coffin box set. What was Dark Shadows, or what is Dark Shadows? You think of every show like a supernatural, like an angel, like every show that you have seen, to me, was inspired, that had a supernatural feel or a supernatural take, or that got into the supernatural or the paranormal, time travel, parallel time. Every show that did that today, or that, you know, has that theme, to me, they were inspired by one show, Dark Shadows, because Dark Shadows got into everything. It got into vampires, witches, zombies, ghosts, possession, parallel time, time travel. Dark Shadow, you hear the term 31 flavors. Well, Dark Shadows had every 31 flavor of ice cream. Um, it just did. And to think of how this show started, that it starts with this girl who is coming from New York. She's an orphan. She grew up in a foundling home. She doesn't know who her parents are, and she's coming to Collinsport to not just take a job, but in hopes of finding out something about herself and who her parents are. She never does, obviously. And then along the way, once she gets there along her journey, she is literally wrapped up into every sort of supernatural angle in many ways. David and her are really like conductors of the supernatural. They don't have to seek it out, it seeks them. And even when they do seek it out, it has results. Vicky herself is a character that I instantly fell in love with, played by the lovely, lovely Alexandra Isles. I don't think there was ever a better Victoria Winters than Alexandra. No disrespect to anybody that played her forward, or disrespect to Joanna Goins. No disrespect intended. To me, my Victoria Winters is Alexandra Isles. That's the one who I first was introduced to. That's somebody who, because I didn't watch the revival till after I watched the syndication episodes of the original series. I first watched Dark Shadows when it aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. And I definitely want to hear your stories. Every Dark Shadows fan has a story to tell of when they first started watching this. When, maybe it was when it originally aired, and great for you. I can't sit here and say that. I had to watch it in syndication. I wasn't born in the 60s, I was born in the 80s. And Dark Shadows is another perfect example of, their focus the Collins family. Yeah, but also their focus was Victorian winners as well. They had so many moving parts, so many characters, and each character kept your attention. No character in this series ever to me was dull or boring or just, none. I love every character. I love the heels. I love the baby faces, if you will, to use the wrestling terminology here today. I love them all. Obviously, my favorite's Victoria Winners. Here's the show that went 211 episodes without a vamp, with 200, we'll say 210, because 211 Barnabas does arrive. 210 episodes without a vampire, and then, my friends, here comes Barnabas Collins, played by the late great Jonathan Frid. Jonathan Frid, the way he portrayed Barnabas Collins was amazing in the series. He could be menacing, but he was also very gentle and kind and nice. Was Barnabas ever an antagonist? He was a bit of an antagonist, but he wasn't a full-blown antagonist. And what I mean by that is, if he were really wanting to be antagonistic, like if he were this true blue antagonist, when I think of true blue antagonist, I think of people like Michael Myers or Leatherface or even Jason, because I love horror too. And that's what Dark Shadows is. Dark Shadows is a part of the horror universe in many ways. I can't put Barnabas in with those guys as a true blue antagonist. He could be antagonistic, but he wasn't your true blue antagonist. He was somebody, if you messed with him, he messed with you. And if you messed with him, you were dead. Many people point to the kidnapping of Maggie Evans. For my opinion, I never felt he was going to kill her. And I'll tell you why. The summation that he goes in front of Josette's portrait, when he's talking to her, when he first arrives, that portrait, he's in love with her. You can tell it right then and there that he's in love with Josette. So I'm thinking, wow, he felt something for her. He was in love with her. And I don't ever feel he was going to really kill Maggie Evans off. And, people are going to say, he killed Dave Woodard. Do you forgive him for the death of Dave Woodard? Listen, Dave Woodard shouldn't have poked his nose in Barnabas' business. That's how I'll defend that one. But I don't put Barnabas as a true blue antagonist. For me, here's this guy. He's not Dracula, He did not ask to become a vampire. He was cursed by a witch who he was married to, and he didn't know that was his wife. He didn't know his wife was a witch, and Angelique. And that brings me to Laura Parker. Laura Parker was so ahead of her time as a witch. The first, when growing up, when you thought of a witch, you thought of the green skin, the cackle laugh. And Angelique has a laugh that it's not cackling, it's just menacing and it's evil, right? To me, Dan O'Heatley and Laura Parker broke the molds. They broke the stereotypical witch. Laura Parker did it first, obviously, in the 60s, and Dan O'Heatley does it in Season of the Witch. They don't have green skin. They don't have, warts all over them. They're not doing it with this or that. They're playing a witch their own way, and God bless them both for it. To me, Laura Parker was definitely ahead of her time because how witches got played after her, I dare say, a lot of the witches in the craft, to me, they're all mini Laura Parkers. They remind me of her Angelique in every sense of the word, in many, many ways. So, you know, the fact that Dan Curtis created this series that would continue to be talked about today, and this isn't the only one, obviously. He created Kolchak the Night Stalker, and he created these characters that were larger than life and are not just among pulp culture, but among horror, talked about so easily, and they're so relatable even today. Every character you ever see in Dark Shadows had a story to tell. Whether they were good, whether they were bad. Chris Jennings, Tom Jennings, even as briefly as, Tom is on and they have Chris. Oh, I'm trying to think. Quentin Collins, obviously. Joe Haskell, Carolyn, Elizabeth, obviously. Joan Bennett, what people point to the fact that Dark Shadows revived her career. Dark Shadows, when I hear the word revived her career, to me, it may have revived her career, but she brought so much to Dark Shadows that it wasn't even funny. Those beginning episodes, the beginning, Elizabeth is such a forefront, and even in the later episodes, there are times Elizabeth is still a forefront. It doesn't become the full blown Barnabas and Julia episodes like it does near the end. Until near the end. But Elizabeth is such a great draw, and that's because of the actress who played her in Joan Bennett. These characters to me will always mean so much. To say I love Dark Shadows, yes, I love Dark Shadows. I love it to death. Obviously, you guys know I write my own Dark Shadows story that continues the 60 series. But I wrote my favorite thing that I wrote so far with Dark Shadows was my favorite horror franchise is Halloween. And I really was so excited to write Hell on Halloween Night in Collinsport. And when I wrote that, it gave me chills. It gave me goosebumps. I had so much fun doing it. And Dark Shadows today is, to me, what is it today? What is it for me now? It's the same thing it's always been. It's something I'll always love. I love the 2 out of the 3 movies. I will watch the 2012 movie. I think that's something, you know, do if someone asks me, "Do you watch the 2012 movie?" I do. I give it a fair look as much as I can. I will say that, one day I hope we get another Dark Shadows movie, if not a series. I do. For me, Dark Shadows in this day and age, we don't have a Dark Shadows series for our time, for the modern day audience. And that's something, I've said to people. To me, the closest thing to me we have of that is John Philip Bettencourt's blog, The Return of Dark Shadows. For me, that's the closest thing we have to a Dark Shadows series. It's not, is it on TV? No. Is it, canon from the standpoint? No, but for me, it's accurate. To me, it's what everything the original series was. Everything. I mean, John has poured so much into this, and as a reader, I appreciate it, because when I'm reading this, I'm going, "Wow, this is so Collinsport. This is so Dark Shadows." None of the characters are dull. Every character is interesting. Every story arc is unique and different, and that's so hard to do. That's not easy, and so I love that. But for me, where do I put the original Dark Shadows among all those shows you've ever seen? To me, it's number one. I love Dark Shadows to death. When you have a character like Barnabas Collins, and every vampire after Barnabas becomes Barnabas clones, that should tell you something. Do I think Dan Curtis set out to create a series that many people would take inspiration from? I'm not sitting here saying he deliberately did that, no, but I do think that Dan Curtis's creation has inspired more, either A, rip-offs, or B, series that take from his show more than people want to admit. And that's what I'll say, that Dark Shadows is just this big inspiration for its audience and its fans. It's everything to us, because it showed us a world we cannot forget, and we will not forget it. Jonathan Fred he's been asked in interviews when he was alive that, why are the fans so obsessed with Dark Shadow? Why are people so upset? Why are the fans so obsessed with this? You'd have to ask them. We're so obsessed with it. I'll answer for me. I'm so obsessed with this show. I'm admitting to my obsession. You have a record of it now. See, I'm so obsessed with this show because when I saw Victoria Winters, I didn't see Victoria Winters through a TV screen. I didn't see Alexander Isles through a TV screen. I envisioned myself sitting across from her on that goddamn train, and I could just see her. They literally captured you that much for me. And I think that's what Dark Shadows has done. It's captivated and captured its audience's imagination. And it's never let go. And in all honesty, I don't want it to let go. And I don't want to let go of it ever. That's how I'll answer that. I'm sure they would get a kick out of that. I'm sure they'd be like, "Really?" But again, I just think Dark Shadows, every Dark Shadows fan has a story to tell. And I definitely want to hear from you guys. I'm going to tag you guys in this. Let me hear your Dark Shadows story. Why are you so obsessed with Dark Shadows? The very question Jonathan Fred got asked, I'm asking the fans. I'm asking my fellow fans. Why are you so obsessed with it? I've given you my answer, and I'm admitting to the obsession. 20 minutes into this thing, I'm admitting to the obsession. I'm obsessed. And I will always be obsessed with it. I think that no matter what comes along, if another series comes along, if another movie comes along and they put it on, I'll watch it. I'll give it a check out. I'm definitely going to check it out. It's Dark Shadows. I will always have a love for the original series because that's what I was introduced to first. And it, again, like I said, it's never let me go, and I've never let it go. I like the revival very much. I think the revival had a lot of good elements to it, but I do think they needed more new character depth. They did not have enough of that in that show. From my standpoint, that's my opinion. I think there's things that Dark Shadows could do today. What would I want to see personally? I would want to see a Dark Shadows from a series standpoint. I'm going to say this. From a series standpoint, I would want to see, yes, give me some of the old characters, but give me a shitload of new ones. Give me a ton of new ones. New characters, new arcs, new stories, because that's what Dark Shadows needs for a new series to work, from my opinion. From a movie standpoint, what do I want to see? One thing, and I think it's the best, is 1795 the best storied arc ever written? Most likely it is. And that's what I would want to see. I would want to see 1795 told on the big screen. Excuse me. But that's something I would definitely love to see told. I would pay 8 tickets. I would buy tickets just to go see this. Many, many tickets. But I'm just having fun. I love Dark Shadows, guys, and I want to hear your stories. What got you into this? What's your love for it? What captivated you about this? I told you mine. I told you when I first started watching it. I told you what captivated me about it. I want to thank the late Dan Curtis, the late Jonathan Fred, the late John Carlin, the late Denise Nicholson, the late Don Briscoe, Laura Parker, the late Joan Bennett, the late Lewis Edmonds, David Hensey, David Selby, the late, oh gosh, what's his name? I know his character's name was Joe Haskell, but there's so many characters in this and actors that were involved. I'm probably not going to sit here and name them all, but Catherine Lee Scott, Jonathan Frid is a given to thank. Alexandra Isles, thank you. Because Alexandra Isles' character gave me the strength to stand up for myself. And that's something I'll never forget. You can say, well, she was a character. Yeah, but she was going through so many things as a character. And yet she wasn't afraid to speak up for herself. And that's something I'll never forget. Especially everything she was battling, the supernatural, this, that, a phoenix, I really think this show should be done today, because there's too many, to quote unquote, Dark Shadows ripoffs, or Dark Shadows inspiration shows. They're just not called Dark Shadows, but many shows have taken from this show here that it's not even funny. And I do think a Dark Shadow series or even a movie would work today. So definitely I would want to see a series more, because we've seen a movie. I've seen 3 movies. What I want to, again, I would want to see 1795. So, all right, guys, again, I want to hear from you. I'm going to tag you guys in this. I want to hear what made you fall in love with this series. Where did you start with it? Was it the movies? Was it the series, the original series? Was it the revival? What introduced you to this phenomenon that we all know and love? And I want to thank you guys for your time. Happy birthday, Dark Shadows. Goodness, what, to be able to just come on here and talk about this, it gives me chills. I love it to death. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And I want to hear from you guys. On Twitter, I'm at Collinwood of. Facebook, Joel T. Saints. Hit me up. It doesn't have to be on this channel. It doesn't have to be on my channel here. But please let me know, where did you start on this? What drew you to it? When did you first see it? Etc., etc., etc. All right, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe.